Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us in celebrating International Women's Day. This is presented by the Women in Engineering chapter of the SAIEE. Before we start, I just need to read a few webinar considerations. Attendees are reminded to ensure the volume is turned up on their device. Ensure you have a stable internet connection. This will ensure the streaming and audio will run smoothly. Attendees can ask questions via the questions panel located within the GoToWebinar control panel. By default, the control panel is located on the right-hand side of your screen. The chat function is reserved for webinar organizers and panelists to communicate with attendees. Attendees will not be able to chat with each other, however, are encouraged to ask questions. A recording of the presentation will be made available on the SAIEE YouTube channel, SAIEE TV. The recording will also be made available on the SAIEE website under the Events drop-down menu in the section Past Events and Webinars. This page is updated regularly, so ensure you check back as often as possible for new uploads and subscribe to our YouTube channel. A certificate of attendance will be issued a few days after this webinar. I'd like to introduce you now to the Vice-Chairperson of the SAIEE Women in Engineering chapter, Ms. Maite Sako. Maite Sako started her career as an engineer in training at Eskom Distribution in 2010. Currently, she is a Chief Engineer at Eskom, Systems Operator specializing in asset integration. She is the first Black female Chief Engineer in the System Operator. She is registered as a professional engineer with the Engineering Council of South Africa, ECSA. She holds qualifications including a BEng Electrical Engineering, certificate in business management and a master's degree in engineering management. She has been a member of the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers since 2016 and has been participating in SAIEE Central Gauteng Centre activities. She was elected Vice Treasurer for SAIEE Centre Gauteng Centre in 2019 and the Treasurer in 2020. She was also elected as Vice Chairperson for the SAIEE Women in Engineering chapter in 2020. I hand you over now to Ms. Sako. I'm sorry, we think we're having some technical difficulties. I would just stand in for Ms. Sako and to introduce you to our SAIEE President, Ms. Sy Gourrah, who will be giving the opening address. Sy Gourrah has been part of the energy industry in South Africa for over 25 years. She started her career as a consultant and later was appointed as the City Electrical Engineer for East London. With more than 2 decades of experience as an electrical engineer, Sy achieved numerous qualifications, including a Bachelor in Engineering, Electrical and Electronics, Masters in Business Administration, and Government Certificate of Competency. Currently, she is the Business Development Specialist for Transmission and Distribution and EPC within ACTOM. Sy served as the Association of Municipal Utilities, the AMEU, President from 2008 to 2010 and served on the Executive Council until 2011. She was the first female president of the AMEU. She is a fellow member of the SAIEE and serves as a council member since 2012. She has chaired the Professional Development and Finance Committees and is currently the president of the SAIEE. She recently launched the SAIEE Women in Engineering chapter, which will strive to promote women interests and champion empowerment programs within the SAIEE and broader electrical engineering fraternity. Ms. Gourrah, welcome.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Minx, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that we do at least have a few men amongst the audience today. So firstly, it is indeed a great honor to be present here for this very important webinar celebrating the globally recognized Day for Women, which is celebrated around the world. And yes, we are going to have people, especially men, and no, I'm not stereotyping or gender categorizing, but it is a question we are often asked. Why is this day so important to remember, and why is it celebrated worldwide? Some countries have in fact declared it as a national holiday, whilst it is largely ignored elsewhere. First and foremost, it is an awareness day declared by the United Nations in 1977. It celebrates our womanhood, which in no way makes us inferior, but rather we need to be proud of. Many, including the majority of us women, do not know about or the real reason behind why we celebrate IWD. That's what everyone calls it, IWD. So today is International Women's Day, or for those that don't know, IWD. So one would ask, what is the awareness all about and what are you talking about? So why do we need a day for a focal point in the movement for women's rights? Let me elaborate on a few focal points, such as women's rights, violence against women, sexual abuse against women, equal pay, equal economic opportunity, opportunities at all levels of management at work, including board level, anti-sexism, anti-discrimination, radical social reform, gender gap, women observance, racial inappropriateness, disproportionate and inadequate representation of women in all spheres of public life or governance, non-participation in decision-making, and the list can go on. I could be here the whole day rattling off the inequalities. And I'm not even going to get into details on what is currently being experienced by women on all the above mentioned topics. That is another discussion for another day. What is shocking for me is that I read somewhere that there is not one country in the world that has achieved gender equality. And the United Nations hopes to achieve it only by 2030, which is quite alarming because all we're doing is literally talking about gender equality and gender issues and women issues, but it seems that the implementation of it is actually not happening and it's taking so long. Even the United Nations literally is saying only 2030. So what I'm hoping is that through these type of networking opportunities, we do not focus on the problems, but how we can empower women, enable women's voices, and rectify the above mentioned issues going forward in a world of inequality. What can we as women in positions do to make a difference, to leave a legacy, to change the policies that affect women, bring policy to empower women? And if you're sitting there thinking, I'm just one person, I'm in this position that I can't make a difference, how am I going to bring this change? Remember, it's all about a domino or ripple effect that brings about a movement of change. So don't sit there, but join the movement. You've got movements such as hashtag choose to challenge and hashtag act for equal, which are genuine hashtags, and especially the millennials. You can go and have a look at this and see that these hashtags are worldwide, are global, and these are movements that are actually happening. I'd like to encourage today's audience, and I think it will be beneficial for you if you are interested in these particular topics and the elaboration of what we can do as women to tackle the bull by its horns and break those glass ceilings. I will be doing a keynote address next week on Tuesday, the 16th at 5 o'clock, where I will go in depth in terms of actually addressing these particular issues, because I believe we can't just sit back and say we've got issues, and we're not having actions actually in terms of trying to do something about this. It can't be just a talk show. So in closing, I wish the audience and the presenters today an informative session through this webinar, and let us move away from talk shows to transformative actions, advancing women in a social, economic, political, and cultural environment for the future of gender equality. So nowadays, they don't call it any longer gender equality, it's called generation equality, because it's for generations to come. I mean, we can't look short-sightedness now, we've got to look at generations to come, especially if these things are only going to be implemented by 2030. So I'm so proud of the University of Johannesburg, especially the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers student chapter, along with the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers Women in Engineering chapter, for this empowering opportunity today. All the best to the team on a successful webinar. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gourrah. We seems that our host today, Ms. Sako, her technical difficulties has been sorted out. I'll hand you over to Ms. Sako. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mings. Good evening, everyone. And firstly, I would like to say thank you to Sy for those beautiful, beautiful words. Indeed, we have to put down action plans and start doing in order to see change happening in our society and globally around the world. Now, I would like to go into this question. What is International Women's Day? The International Women's Day is a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. The theme for this year is Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. This theme celebrates the tremendous effort by women and girls around the world in shaping a more equal future and recovery from COVID-19 pandemic. It is also aligned with the priority theme of the 65th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, Women's Full and Effective Participation and Decision-Making in Public Life, as well as the elimination of violence for achieving gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls, and also the flagship Generation Equality campaign, which calls for women's right to decision-making in all areas of life, equal pay, equal sharing of unpaid care and domestic work, and end all forms of violence against women and girls, and healthcare services that respond to their needs. And now, to unpack this theme, we have a fantastic panel of ladies with us today. I would like to introduce our panel for the discussion today. Firstly, we have Mpho Mahlamvu. Mpho is the Infrastructure Asset Management Executive. She has a deep understanding of the maintenance of public infrastructure South Africa, as well as associated nuances in its impact on social justice. Her specific interests are understanding the value chain drivers required for successful infrastructure implementation within the region, as well as the role women play in this field. She is an award-winning technology innovator. She was awarded the first prize in the GAP Green Innovation Competition run by Innovation Hub in 2014. She has also successfully pioneered the first implementation of real-time remote monitoring of critical equipment such as boiler tanks for improved maintenance planning through utilizing the Internet of Things within the public infrastructure space. She is an advocate of women in STEM and a registered project management professional since 2013, and is now a member of the Institute of Directors. And then secondly, we have Sharleen Masango, who is an enthusiastic and highly motivated final year electrical and electronic engineering student at UJ. She is passionate about social impact that is or may be brought on by technology, and a proven project leader, having led multiple class projects to completion. Sharleen is an active member of the UJ SAIE student chapter and participated in the chapter's executive committee. She was chairperson in 2020 and was the deputy chairperson in 2019. She likes to take proactive approach to solving problems where possible and to seek out new challenges. And thirdly, on our panel, we have Kholofelo Phasha, who has been academically awarded for being top student and most exemplary girl student for her matric class. She obtained the 6th position at National Curo Matric in top 10. She's also the founder of Help a Girl Child in School Light of Hope, charity that donates sanitary towels to girls at socioeconomically disadvantaged schools and provide academic guidance to young people. She aspires to be more than just a medical doctor in her lifetime. She's intentional about being philanthropist, a voice for the voiceless and the welfare of others. She aims to create spaces that will give young girls and women access to better lifestyles and education to enrich their lives and offer healthcare to those abandoned. Believing that girls and women have been marginalized and devalued for a long time, creating organizations that will nurture young women to stand for themselves and aspire for a greater future is her objective. She calls herself a light of hope. And ladies and gentlemen, those are our fantastic panel of ladies that we will be engaging with today. Now, the first question that we're going to be unpacking is, what does the theme achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world to a young woman, young girl in our society today? And that first question I would like to pose to you, Kholofelo. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you for the lovely introduction. Happy International Women's Day to all the women out there. It is very essential for us to realize that although COVID-19 has had very strenuous effects on the society and most especially on women, it has highlighted the great challenges that we have in our country and also globally in the world affecting women. We have realized that there is a huge gap that needs to be filled, especially with women and gender equality. COVID-19 has made us to realize that women are in the background, and they are the forces that are holding the progress of different structures, yet they are the least represented. So right now, we have realized this as it has been highlighted by COVID-19, and we are now able to tackle it as young women, as all women and girls, to try and tackle it in a way that for our future generations and even the current generation, we will be able to achieve an equal future for all of us. This means looking at the things that really got us to be in struggles. We are talking about gender norms that have been influenced by generationally evolved religions, cultural beliefs, and traditional beliefs. These are the things that have contributed a lot to the mindset of men and women in countries and in societies for the previous generations. So now with the highlighted problems due to COVID-19, we are able to look at them and say, we as women, we are taking stand. We are choosing to challenge those problems. We are choosing to stop being silent and give out our voices, to fight for the women who are voiceless, to be there and stand and be on the front lines and say, yes, we are in the background, but we are being the least represented. But now we want to achieve an equal future. We are going to empower our young girls. We are going to empower future generations, telling them that we are worth it. Women are magic, and for us to reach that, we need to tackle each and every part, the mental health. So with achieving a great, better future during COVID-19, we will be able to create future generations that will live in a gender equal world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kholofelo. That was a very good points that you raised right there. Indeed, as women, we are magic, without no doubt. We are magic, and there are certain things that we have to tackle. There are certain gender norms. There are certain cultures that we have to face on and be able to change them so that we can be able to bring this change that we want to see. All right, and then let me get your thoughts on this topic, Sharleen. Over to you.
Hi everyone, thank you for the opportunity. So what does the theme achieving an equal future in the COVID-19 world mean to young women? Myself being a young woman, correct, right, Maite? So the new normal, first we need to talk about this COVID-19 world that we're living in, where we're working from home, where a lot of challenges have come to surface. As Sy put out, we saw GBV cases going up and all of that. And it says, what does it mean to me? It means I can't dwell on my problems. I need to motivate myself and motivate the next woman to say, look, we can do this. We can achieve whatever it is we need to achieve, despite the problems or obstacles that we're going to face. And that is what it means. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharleen. Yes, indeed, as women, we cannot do it on our own. I cannot sit on my own as Maite and say, I can do this on my own. We have to hold hands together, join hands, become a circle of supportive women, and be able to find solutions for these issues that we find in our society. And then moving over to you, Mpho, the same question to you. What does the theme achieving an equal future in your COVID-19 world mean to the young women, young girls in our society?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Yeah, I think the COVID environment really introduced to us large-scale disruption in ecosystems and supply chains. So I think that normally when a change as seismic as the COVID happens, new paths are being laid open. It's up to those, I think, who have been in there long enough, who are in positions of leadership, to start to recognize this and start to intentionally create opportunities for young women. What do I mean? I think you've seen a lot in terms of what is happening in government when the presidency starts to talk about using the crisis or the opportunity to be able to redress some of the structural issues within the South African space. I think women and women leaders need to take that role very seriously. The crisis such as this presents a change in the ecosystem, a change in supply chains. So in that way, if you're a women leader and you are in charge of policy, in charge of making decisions, it is now the time to start to be intentional about putting young women onto the table in boards, in other places of representation, and that we must not want to be the only women in the room. It's important that we bring others along. I think the last thing that I want to say is that a lot of opportunities or the work environment is such that people promote people who are like them. So it's important, because women are indeed in a minority, particularly in the engineering space, that women who are in leadership take the opportunity to bring other women onto the table. So that's what I would say about this.
Thank you very much, Mpho, for those valuable points. Indeed, this is a crisis that we find ourselves in. This is a dislocation of the norms that we are used to. So as a result, we need to find new paths. We need to find new opportunities. We need to think differently, new, and we need to also bring others along with us. And it is a good challenge that we are putting to those that are in leadership positions, to be able to bring those other ladies that are down there with them, in order so that we can be helping each other in order to bring change and to find opportunities that comes with this crisis that we are seeing right now. And secondly, I'm going to be posing the second question, which it goes as follows. I mean, we do have, in addition to persistent pre-existing social and systematic barriers to women's participation and leadership, new barriers have emerged with the COVID-19 pandemic. Across the world, women are facing increased gender-based violence, unemployment, they're facing poverty, and women globally have to fight for their rights and fight for inequality, to challenge the stereotypes. So now the question I'd like to pose to the panelists now is, how can we as women, girls, effectively participate in achieving gender? And I'll go back to you, Kholofelo, just to get your thoughts on that question there.
So now, COVID-19 having happened and highlighted all the problems that we have as women experiencing here in the world, whereby we are the majority population, but we are the least represented. What we can do right now is to try and empower one another. That's the first thing. We need to empower each other, show the women who are voiceless that you can do it. I have done it, so I'm gonna take the bait and give it to you. In which ways? This is the time for us to get into the leadership roles, to make women realize that their places are not only in the kitchens. No. Now, these are times whereby we need to get inside the labs, we need to get inside the offices, we need to get inside the corporate worlds, we need to beat out and disrupt this status quo. We need to make our women, our young women, to realize that women have potential and we need to create that opportunity. So us as women right now, we should create that opportunity for everybody. We should tell the women that yes, we are here. We should be voiceful. We are here. We should make the voice and we should represent one another. How? We look back at what has been happening. We look back at the gender-based violence cases, how COVID-19 has gotten us to confront our perpetrators inside homes. Yet, there have been opportunities such as being able to realize that, okay, as women, we have lost many jobs during COVID-19, and we have been confirmed to being the caregivers that we naturally are. But those are not the things that we need to keep to ourselves. And those are not the only areas whereby we need to be in. We can be caregivers for the world. We can be in leadership positions and be caregivers. Because women don't only think for themselves. Women think for others. So how about right now we get our young women to realize their potential by getting them to school? Education. Education is very important, and it is the necessary element for transformation to an equal future. Without it, our young women are never going to be equal to men. We need to break the boundaries and get to the mindset of men that have been created during the previous generations by telling men and showing them that they are still safe. They are still safe, they're still okay, even when women are in leadership positions. They don't need to be scared because we are caregivers. Now this is the time for us to take a stand. This is the time for us to be there for everybody and to show our potential by breaking the status quo. That is the only way whereby we can get our women to see the better future and to take an active part in it, because we are agents of change.
Ladies and gentlemen, it seems like our host is having technical issues again. Can we just ask Sharleen Masango to answer us the second question that was posed? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minx. Okay, so when we talk about gender equality, the word that I don't like very much there is equality, because when we're talking about equality, I'm going to give an example. If Mpho, myself, and Kholofelo are hungry, I haven't had breakfast. Kholofelo ate last night. Mpho had her last meal 2 weeks ago, and she probably doesn't have shelter. And then Sy comes along and gives us each a banana and a bottle of water because it's equal, right? And that's somehow supposed to solve all of our problems because we all equally got a banana and a bottle of water, and it's supposed to make us whole. For me, we had breakfast. It might be we didn't have breakfast. It might be okay, but for somebody who has been hungry for a longer time, it will not suffice. So I choose to say, let us look at equity-driven solutions, because when we talk about equity, we are breaking down the problem and we are looking at specific instances and dealing with them as they need to be dealt. We're not using a blanket approach to try and deal with all of the problems. We are saying, let us break it down, let us do it in integral form, and just, each person, each problem dealt with. Yes, there are general problems that we face as women in society, but I feel that each of those problems deserves a solution that is specifically designed for it. Yeah, I think that's what we need to do. If it were up to me, I would reboot the whole of mankind and make us all look at each other as just human beings, minus race, minus gender, and just look at each other as human beings, people with hearts and brains, emotion, feelings, and thoughts and dreams. And I think that would work unfortunately, that is not our reality today. And the next best option is to look at equity-driven solutions that deal with specific instances. And I think we might get better results than just talking and planning. And talking is a good thing. Not being silent is actually being part of the problem. So if you are in a space where you see that you are not able to make much of a difference, start the conversation at least. You are starting something, like Sy said, a ripple effect. You're starting a domino effect that could lead to greater things. So we should be courageous, start those conversations, think of equity-driven solutions to help each and every single one of us in our journeys. And thanks, Mings.
Okay, I think I'm back on. Thank you very much, Sharleen, on those particular points. And indeed, you are correct. You know what? Up until we are able to stand up and raise our voices that we are not happy with 1, 2, 3, we will not allow 1, 2, 3, then that's when change is going to be happening in our societies. Up until we are able to raise our voices, even on behalf of others who are voiceless. So we need to be able to take up positions and open up platforms, take up space, as Miss Universe mentioned, you know, that we need to take up space. We need to avail ourselves to engage in certain conversations that will be able to change the things that we want changed in our society. And then over to you, Mpho, on the same question.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, okay. So thanks a lot. I think your question is how can women around the world prepare themselves for the new normal? So I'd just like to link it to the initial answer around ecosystem change. Now, the ecosystem change has brought about 3 main trends. It has brought about this issue around remote work and virtual interaction, the use of e-commerce and other digital platforms, and the deployment of automation and artificial intelligence. Now, these are the trends that are dominant, and this is according to a McKinsey study just recently published. These are the new trends that are entrenching themselves during this ecosystem change. It is so very important in that for young women and women to prepare themselves for this new world, this technology-intense world, where you don't have to leave the comfort of services or competencies that are shown or explored, not having to leave the comfort of your home, are going to be the new future. Technologies around artificial intelligence, automation, tracking, tracing, supply chain digitization, etc. All those activities or new competencies are opening up. That means that it is actually an equal footing for all, for men, for women, because it's a new field. Thus, we need to equip ourselves as women, particularly in the engineering sector, that we are re-equipping ourselves, educating ourselves about these new technologies, and seizing opportunities that present themselves in this space. It's fundamental to understand that it will be difficult to try and draw back gains from industries that have been long developed. It will be easier when all of us are incumbents and are moving from an equal space to be able to move forward. I think that links a little bit to what Sharleen is saying. If you're talking about an equitable opportunities where all of us are incumbents. Nobody knows better than anyone because all of us are learning through the pandemic at the same time. So I would like to see a situation where young women, young engineers channel their future and their activities towards tech and are able to see and seek opportunities in this space and take up roles in this space around Internet of Things, as I say, supply chain digitization, all those new activities where there isn't a dominant player and it's an opportunity for all of us to participate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mpho, for those points there. Indeed, you know what, I mean, we have to get to a position where we are equipping ourselves as women. When we say we want an equal opportunities, we need to be able to equip ourselves with those particular skills that we will need for a world that will be equitable. We cannot afford to want to depend on all technologies. We need to be able to open up and do enough research to find out what is it that is going to be happening, what is it that new skills that I need to equip myself in order to prepare myself for the new world. And then now coming over to the other question that I would like to pose to our channel is, so we have opportunities that are coming, so the question is, which opportunities are likely to emerge as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic that we find ourselves in? Let me take your thoughts there, Kholofelo.
It's really comforting knowing that although COVID-19 has really distracted everything and all of us, there are still opportunities that we can seize from it. So now we have been able to see the immense work that have been done by world leaders, women world leaders. We have seen how women in leadership in their own countries have been able to tremendously survive COVID-19 and lead their population in a good way whereby they had less cases. I believe that this has brought to the attention of young women and women in general that when women are in leadership, there are good things to be recognized. Women who were in leadership positions really did a good job. So now this got us to realize the potential that we have, and this has created an opportunity for all the young girls out there, for all the women out there to realize that, oh, actually I can tap into my potential and be a leader. I don't need to be at the back. I need to be on the front line. Opportunities in a way that during COVID-19 many women lost their jobs, yet they were able to realize how entrepreneurial they were. They were able to create businesses. Those are opportunities that have been arisen from the I'm really sorry. About the interceptions and intercom. As I was saying, now we're able to realize that we have the potential to lead the economy too. Because for so long, men are the ones who have been in positions where they are capable to lead the economy and tremendously actively participate in the economy. Now we have been able to see that we can be CEOs. These are the opportunities that we've gotten. We can see that, okay, I can get into those fields, the science fields, the technological fields, the information fields, the medical fields, whereby they are so scarce and women are the least in them. These are the opportunities that have been created. There have been an open mind due to COVID-19, where we've realized that we have a lot of potential and we just need opportunities for us to prosper. And now during COVID-19, a lot of women, I believe, have tapped into their potential and realized what they're capable of, creating opportunities for themselves by creating their own tables and inviting people, because with our system, women are not invited to tables. So now we no longer bring chairs and force ourselves onto gender injustice tables, but we are creating tables for ourselves and inviting women, empowering one another and saying that, you know what, from now on during COVID-19, we have realized the potential, we have realized that we have the capabilities. Let's move in that direction. These are the new opportunities. And I believe that we will see that even with the future generations. I believe that this is a beginning of a great future where women will be able to take leadership positions, knowing that, no, you know what, I'm capable of this, because during COVID-19, there were women world leaders who were able to lead populations tremendously and successfully so. So this has created an eye-opening opportunity for all young girls out there to believe in themselves and to do whatever that they want to do to empower themselves and others around them and to succeed in this system that is so injustice, that has so much injustices towards women. now we can fight those injustices by knowing our potential and tapping into it.
Absolutely valuable points that you touched there, Kholofelo. Indeed, you know what, women have shown that even though this COVID-19 have gotten rid of other jobs, you know, other women, they're able to rise up and say, okay, what is it that I need to do now? Let me go out there and see what is happening out there. And other women have actually found that they are capable of being entrepreneurs. And this is one of the things that shows that women are powerful. Women don't just sit with a problem. They wake up and go out there and seek solutions for their children that they leave at home so that they can put a plate on the table. So the other point that I like that you mentioned was when we no longer feed on certain tables, we have to sit and create our own tables. You know, gone are those days when you say, okay, I don't have skills, therefore I'm not going to do 1, 2, 3. Technologies has shown us that you are able to learn certain things from the internet. Information is there that you can even download from even the comfort of your home and be able to create your own table, be able to, you know, research and get more information on whatever entrepreneurship or whatever aspect of field that you want to research in. Thank you very much. And then let me move over to Sharleen on the same question of saying, how can women around the world prepare themselves for this new normal that we find ourselves in? Over to you, Sharleen.
Thank you, Maite. Very good points from Kholofelo. I just want to invite you into my headspace when I was trying to get myself ready for tonight. And when I was reading up on the Times, sometime in July last year, they were reporting about 2 million women in South Africa that were retrenched. And that is just a scary thought. And now I'm thinking about these 2 million in the now, and now I have to think about opportunities that are available in future. Never mind that there were other women who were not privy to those opportunities in the first place. So then I started thinking, well, every semester there's going to be probably one lecturer that says, look, you're going to be in university for all these years, but the chances are you're probably studying for a job that doesn't exist. When Margaret Thatcher first became the first female prime minister of the UK, it was something that was never seen before. So when we look at it, look at her journey, you know, we may not agree with her on certain points, but when you analyze that, it took a lot from her to get to a place where people thought it was impossible. You know, she had the job that does not exist. Now I'm going to just maybe give key things that can help us to get opportunities that do not yet exist now, and that is to be driven, to be committed, to be willing to be learners, you know, never stop learning, be able to lead, you know, be able to admit when you don't know about something so that you open up more opportunities for yourself to learn. There are many things that we can do. I was watching the news this morning, and there is going to be an amendment to the bill in terms of customary marriages, something that we didn't think was ever going to change. Prior to 1994, as women, we did not have property rights, right? And then in 2000, that was fixed. And now we are fixing it even more. So there are lots of opportunities in different spaces, whether you're in medicine, whether you're in law, whether you're in engineering, in the finance industry. There's always something new to be done. We just have to be driven, we have to be disciplined, we have to be willing to learn over and over and over again. And at the same time, when we get to those opportunities, we shouldn't forget to reach out a hand and pick up the woman right next to you and let them walk along with you in our journey. Thank you very much, Maite.
Thank you very much.
It seems Maite has lost audio again. I'm not sure. Maybe our chairperson, Ms. Mokololo, can assist here. Thank you.
Hi, Mings. Thanks for that. Apologies for these technical issues that we're having. Maybe just to get to one more question about, emerging opportunities. And I think, Mpho, you touched a little bit about, as we have these major disruptions, what are these opportunities that we see emerging post-COVID world, if ever there is such a notion of a post-COVID world. Are there any thoughts about, what people should be repositioning themselves for in terms of opportunities? Mpho, do you want to go first?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, I think as a starting, maybe I want to start maybe where Sharleen started off. I think as well in the same study of McKinsey, it starts to show us, it says that in Europe and in the United States, if you don't have a college degree and you're a member of an ethnic minority group or you're a woman, you are likely to change occupations after COVID-19. In the United States, people without college degrees are 1.3 times more likely to be forced to make career transitions. I think in France and Germany, the increase in job transitions required to trends influenced by COVID-19 is 4 times higher for women than for men. So women are disproportionately affected in terms of the roles that they play, the areas that they occupy, the level of education, the type of education, even within the education space. So it's very, very important really to accept that in the past, so how socially we are structured has ensured that we are not equitable, as I think Sharleen was trying to say. But the disruption of the ecosystems by this COVID-19 pandemic makes us all novices. What does it make us novice in? We never knew, all of us, that you could actually have this meeting or this South African Institute of Electrical Engineers webinar on electronic format. Before, it was always something that you do in person. So it shows us that these trends around remote work and virtual interaction, the use of e-commerce and other digital platforms, the deployment of automation and artificial intelligence, those new trends are activities which we can sink ourselves into. We are not at all in that sense highly disadvantaged because we are starting all from the same basis. So really, I feel, Chair, that the future, or those that are going to have an advantageous future, are those who start to understand that these opportunities are really there for the taking, and we are all novices in them. I would say, I mean, if you are aware, I mean, in terms of the Minister of Communication and the Presidency, they have got a forum or commission on 4IR. There are several opportunities emerging in the education space around e-education, in the medicine space, medicine, even issues around digital track and tracing of equipment and infrastructure. These are sort of applications where a traditional form of, say, engineering has been enhanced by technology. It is important for us as women to start to embrace those fields and not to be afraid of technology, to really start to be open, to open our minds and I think our competence is there to open our minds to these new opportunities and really go hard on them. And then the last thing that I really want to emphasize is that as you're transitioning, or as your career transitions from entering the career from how can I say, from university, etc., there is a lot about what you know. Here, as you go and you become an executive it's a lot about who you know. So it's important as you are transitioning technically or enhancing your technical skills, that you enhance your positioning skills, that you are able to present a solution and add value in the spaces around tech, around AI, around connectivity, and you make yourself visible in that space so that opportunities can also open up and people can know about your competence. So I think that's sort of, if I can round it up, Chair, that's my view.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mpho, for that. For people in the audience, just please remember that you can pose your questions in the question panel, and we will be taking questions shortly. Sharleen, moving on to you, and you made the comment earlier on around, we should be focused on an issue basis, but from an opportunity point of view, and also maybe particularly from a policy point of view, what do you think are those, major areas that will present opportunities, as Mpho was alluding to, but from a policy point of view, post-COVID, what are those areas that you think we should be advocating for as women that would ensure that we are able to take advantage of these opportunities, and to ensure that, unlike in the previous reality where the changes were incremental, so to speak, that we can have a radical shift towards parity?
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to pick from Mpho as well in terms of opportunities, but you're speaking more on policy. It's very difficult for me to comment on policy in terms of the industry because I'm not there yet. But I think I'm going to tap on the point that post-COVID, we are all novices. It's a novel thing. We've never experienced it. So it'll be easier to tackle different kinds of policies or maybe issues that were being discussed pre-COVID, and now you can look at them from slate number one. We are all starting from building blocks, and we can look at it in that way. I'm not too sure on the specific policies in industry, but maybe general stuff, GBV, for example, in terms of policies, I think our laws can be revisited in terms of women's rights. One person mentioned that we shouldn't have the same minister for women and children. It should be a separate thing so that issues are dealt with specifically, so that we don't miss anything. Because if you mix the two, there are so many things that affect children and there are so many things that affect women at the same time. And to have one ministerial body looking at both of those things might be too much. So maybe in terms of that, when we're speaking about policy, maybe we can break that down and have it as two separate things. At a university level, in terms of policy, on my side, I don't think as students at a university level we face any discrimination in terms of policy in universities, but maybe we should be encouraging more females to register into engineering. Currently, as we speak, in my final year class for projects, there's only about 11 females out of, I think, 100 and something. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharleen. Maybe lastly, Kholofelo, do you want to comment briefly on new emerging opportunities post-COVID?
So with the new emerging policies, I'd also like to tap onto the new emerging opportunities. I also like to tap into the policies that we have, basically as a country and globally, because we are women, we make the majority of the population, but the policies that are held by our system form a barrier between us and the leadership positions that we can get into. Looking at like the few examples that I might make right now. When the budget speech was made, we have realized that there would be a cut on NSFAS, and NSFAS is a national funding that gets to support students from socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds to go to school and to equip themselves with skills that are necessary for us to reach a brighter, better future. So now we we know that education is a very important tool, especially with changing the status quo, because you cannot tap into the depths, you cannot tap into the offices, the corporate world, and change the economy without being educated. So now with policies such as the national budget stating that they are decreasing the funding of students who are the future leaders and will have a major impact on future generations due to the decisions that will be made in the few years. What are we saying? Are we saying that we are limiting Black students, we are limiting women in general here in South Africa from reaching those parts? Whereas our National Development Plan says that they are fighting towards less poverty and less gender inequality, yet what the government itself does is opposite to what their National Development Plan says. So they rebut one another in a way that we can say the system is creating and continuously creating a barrier between women and success and being equal to men. So now with these opportunities, we can now say, okay, let there be women in leadership positions. Let there be women in leadership positions whereby they will be able to say, you know what, for NSFAS, we already know that women, even in schools, like Sharleen has said, that there are so few students, few women students in her class. We can realize that women still lack the opportunity to study. And if they continue lacking the opportunities to study, they will lack the opportunity to lead and to make transformative changes. So now they should change the policies. We can tap into a discussion and be activists, saying that we need changes in our policies, in our national policies, in our student policies, university policies, where that we should see more of leaders, women leaders in the SLC, in residences, where we will be able to see women taking space. That will help us a lot in realizing our potential and creating more opportunities. Remember that you cannot create an opportunity without an idea. So now we need to plant that seed that we are changing the policy for the better of all the women and to create a generation, future generations that will prosper in a gender equal world. So we need to address our national policies because they are against women themselves. They're against women, and before we ever try to reach the equality status, which seems so far, because the United Nations says it estimates actually that gender equality can only be achieved in 2030. So you can imagine that we've been in democracy for 27 years, yet we haven't reached the gender equal state. So we still need to create more opportunities, and those opportunities can only be funded by the government, not only, but highly funded by the government. So if the government tries to support women, here we're talking about the men, we are talking about the boys, to support women, I believe that we can reach that part. We can reach a part whereby we realize that, okay, we are at a point where we are equal to men, and we can make decisions that affect us properly by being in those leadership positions. Men cannot continuously make decisions that affect women while women are not on the table to make those decisions too. So opportunities such as opening up the parliaments for women, opening up leadership roles, and opening up tables for women to sit on them and make decisions that affect us. We cannot be having people who are not us representing us on leadership panels. They cannot. So this is the time where we need to voice out and be activists towards the government opening opportunities for women to speak up for themselves to create a gender equal world.
Thank you for that, Kholofelo. We've got a bit of time, about 15 minutes, where we can take questions from the audience. I have a comment here from Karen Foslo. She says, in SA, no. We have to acknowledge that we have already created so many opportunities for women. In South Africa, I was the only female engineer in my class. Now there are many women studying engineering. Further, I accompanied my husband when he presented engineering courses overseas. In Holland, when we asked where are the women, we were told that they are where they belong, in the kitchen, in their place in the kitchen. In Holland, of all places. Wow, that's shocking. In South Africa, my husband's industry courses usually has a high female attendees. In Australia, there were only 2 or 3 a class. So we're actually doing very well in South Africa, encouraging females to enter engineering. There's still much more to do, but we need to acknowledge our success. So that is more a comment or a question. Does any of the panelists want to react to that comment? Sharleen, maybe? It's a general comment.
Yeah, I think in general we are doing quite well. I mean, even in our ministerial body, we have quite a few female role models to look up to. I've done vacation work or internship work at different companies to find female directors, you know, leading and doing all of that. Yes, there are a few females in my class this year, but I think and I hope that there's more coming in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mpho, you think South Africa fares better than the rest of the world and that we should be proud? You have any reaction to the comment?
Yes, I actually saw a study about a month or 2 ago, Chair, that really starts to show us that women, particularly in South Africa, I think South Africa and India are probably one of the foremost, how can I say, proponents or supporters of women in STEM. I think we were sitting around 43%, and possibly India was just underneath in terms of gender parity at an education level, so at a STEM education level. Of course, issues around parity are very difficult as soon as you transition. So I think this discussion is always important to have it in a two-phased approach, in understanding that at the base of a career, you're talking about enabling factors. You make sure that you support girls to study math, science, engineering, other tech education. But unfortunately, as you transition, it's where the policy, how can I say, moves from, how can I say, becomes nuanced. It's not really that directional. You can have set asides, you can have all of these things, but it's difficult if you don't have CEOs or people of decision-making power who are advocates of this thing. We must be so very intentional about creating gender parity within, how can I say, as you transition through your career. So I think that it's going to take a long time, but it is important that we have this conversation and we start to transition it into real actionable items on the ground that are able to cover the transition of young women's careers as they build them. I think that's what I would say.
There is a question from Millicent Kwangwari. Where do young women find these opportunities to shine? Are there any platforms or forums that you can advise someone to join so that they can encounter these opportunities to grow? I'm a final year student at UCT and I'm passionate about women empowerment. So do we have inclusive platforms where people can influence and also find opportunities for themselves? Maybe, Mpho, you want to answer that question?
You're talking about, you said platforms. I mean, my son is in the background. I'm sure. Apologies about that. I think that there are many platforms available at a varsity levels, most certainly. I think within the SRC platforms, etc., young women should be able to start to participate. You firstly need to be seen in the leadership positions of the education, of the spaces that are within you. But I think going forward, institutions such as this, women in engineering chapters, women in property, etc., it's important to join these institutions so that you can start to link up with other women in the industry who can then start to create sort of mentorship paths for you to be able to see what would be the next step. It's not a, how can I say, I mean, it's not a magical transition, Chair. I mean, it takes, several years, 10, 15, 16 years to establish yourself within an industry. So I think it's important to put yourselves in that path. And then I think as well, women need to continue in terms of advocacy. We need to have robust engagement in whatever avenues that we are. And I keep repeating this, and it sounds like I'm repeating it, but it is what it is. We have to be intentional. There is no change that is going to come about from us being apathetic about the issues of gender parity. It requires us to be so specific and so directional about it, to say, I want to see 10 women MDs. I want to see 10 women CEOs. I want to see Maite's chief engineers of women in so many SOEs. Those need to be the things that are occupying women organizations, so that it creates a pointer for women to look up to and to know that if they enter those positions, they will be supported. So I am asking really that the community of women rises up, and we are not in the background. We must literally take up that space intentionally, with great competence, with a great understanding of the industries and the environments which we occupy, and that takes time to learn. So we must put in the work, but we must be extremely intentional about leadership for women.
Thanks for that, Mpho. And then last question, how do we address encouraging innovation amongst young female engineers? Sharleen, I think maybe you'll be the right person to answer this question from Mesha.
Okay, how do we address, can you please repeat the question for me? I just want to process it.
How do we address encouraging innovation amongst younger female engineers?
Okay, how do we address innovation amongst young females? I think it's easy as putting yourself out there. Like I said, be willing to learn something new. Be willing to honestly assess yourself, to say, look, I know nothing about machine learning. Let me pick up an online course and learn something and get my certificate from this. And this way, when you acquire more knowledge about different sorts of things, you are able to when you're thinking of new ideas that will solve certain problems, your how can I say this? Your knowledge base is much bigger. So to that person, I would encourage you to take up online courses, quick courses on 4IR, on machine learning. Most universities have linked up with Coursera. I don't know if yours has done that. As well as, I know that UJ, we have a nice short course on 4IR. I think anyone can register for that, even if you're from another institution. Take that up, do that course, get your certificate, so that you are able to open up your mind when you are thinking about different problems. Also, learn to engage with other people. Learn that you are not an island. Start talking to different people, even if it's your lecture. If you have something that's interesting in your lecturer's field, send the lecturer an email to say, can we maybe schedule a session to talk about this? I'd like to understand a little bit more about it, or what do they think? Have your own projects, your little, I know it's called tinkering. Yes, in engineering, it's called tinkering. Have tinker projects that you can do. It doesn't have to be big things. You can start by doing doorbells, for example, and you will grow from there. That way you will learn how PCB boards work and all of that stuff. So start small and simple. Don't overwhelm yourself with too much. Yeah, that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And I think that's all the questions that we've had. We are nearing the end. Maybe I would just like to ask the panel for their last parting shot on this topic that we are discussing today. Any last views or any last words on how we achieve an equal future in a COVID-19 world. Maybe Kholofelo, you'd like to go first. Your last thoughts in closing?
Like Ms. Mpho has already mentioned, and also Ms. Sharleen, there are a lot of opportunities out there. There are a lot of opportunities, but we just need to get out there and show people that we are able and we are willing to learn, because that's the only way we can achieve an equal future. Because there's no one who can get to us and say, hey women, we have this for you, but us as women have to go out there and grab those opportunities for ourselves. So we need to equip one another and ourselves with the right skills by going and getting the education, and for us to break the barriers, for us to show that we can cement ourselves. That's the only way. So as women, we should continue encouraging our young girls to get education, to tap into those potential zones and scarce zones where women are deemed vulnerable and where women are deemed not likely to be in, and prove that we can do it. Opportunities are always there. We need to arise to them by equipping ourselves with the good skills so that we can tap and lead women. We should represent ourselves.
Thank you so much, Kholofelo. It's been great having you on. Sharleen, your last parting thoughts?
Firstly, I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to be on the panel. I have a lot of thoughts to say, but the first thing I'd like to say is that to the women who already are in leadership roles, very big leadership roles, whatever company you're working for, whatever field you're in, it's a plea from my side to say, please hold yourselves accountable for everything that you are doing. Accountability is not just for us, but for yourself. Remember that anything that you do, somehow, for some other reason, it might be just you, or let me say just me, Sharleen, doing something in whatever field, but for some other reason it goes wrong, it bounces back and reflects on the entire group. So well done for getting to that level, but you still need to keep the flag very high. You still need to keep the standard very high and be accountable at every second. And then to young women like myself, it's the journey goes on. We must just be willing to work hard, willing to put ourselves out there, not to be shy. A lot of us in engineering, a lot of females in my class are very shy to ask questions because they feel some way, but you'll never know if you don't ask questions. Put yourselves out there, engage with communities. You are never going to know the problems of the community if you don't engage with them, if you don't make yourself a part of them. Engage with communities, engage with people, engage with lots of wells of knowledge so that you can grow into one spectacular woman. And a happy International Women's Day to everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sharleen, and we certainly do take that challenge. For your last.
Thank you, Chair. I think my last thoughts are maybe sobering ones. I mentioned the statistic on women in STEM that South Africa is probably on the forefront globally, but South Africa is also on the forefront, unfortunately, of women or gender-based violence. Now, you can already understand, in a STEM environment, you are likely to be the only women or one of the few women in the room. Even the issues around gender-based violence are not only issues where women are getting beaten up at home, which is what is happening, rape, etc., but there is a lot of dominance that men exert in the work environment and sort of making it difficult for women. So it's important for men to come along on this journey and improve the hygiene factors for women. In that they should ensure that there is a social culture that accommodates or promotes women to have a voice in the space that they occupy. So I think that's very, very important. We can talk about enabling factors, STEM, etc., but if men are opposed or not on the journey, then it will be very difficult for women to make traction in this space. And I think lastly, I mean, in the words of Mam Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka today on International Women's Day, I think she's the UN Women Executive Director. She says women need representation that reflects all women and girls in all their diversity and abilities across all cultural, social, economic, and political situations. This is the only way we will get real societal change that incorporates women in decision making as equal and benefits us all. So it makes it economically important or makes sense to be inclusive of women, to have a diverse, to promote diverse organizational culture that in itself will ensure sustainability. So it's in fact to the advantage of men in society to have women to participate at this level. So in that, I'd just like to thank the SAIEE, EE for this invite, and I just hope that in between the year, as the year continues, that there is continuous intentional conversation around women or gender parity within the STEM environment. I'm a very passionate advocate for women in STEM, and we continue to raise the conversation with different women, but with the hope that the conversation needs to stay on the table, that we shouldn't visit it only on such auspicious occasions. So I'd just like to thank you for allowing me to participate in this very enriching conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mpho, Sharleen, and Kholofelo. It's been really, really enriching listening to you. And we would really like to thank you for making this opportunity. And if I can really try to recap without ruining, the great points that you have made, is that, we have made great strides, particularly in South Africa. However, the road is still long and that the obstacles are well pronounced. However, COVID-19 disruptions do really provide almost like a level playing field and an opportunity for everybody to grab an opportunity as they emerge post the COVID-19 or during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that we need to give ourselves time to be able to realign and reposition ourselves and to understand how value chains are being disrupted, how industries have been disrupted, and to understand how we can take advantage of those through collaboration and through influencing various stakeholders and decision makers and policy making to ensure that we can achieve parity way sooner than we have, to ensure that we have women in environments who can make decisions rather than relying on the same people who have created the system to change the status quo. So I would like to really thank you for supporting us tonight. We certainly, as you said, we'll be having a series of conversations. There is a number of topics that we would like to put on the table as the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers Women chapter. So we will be having, we'll be continuing with the webinar series, and we do want to make these webinars a lot more than just conversation and ending the conversation, but getting into conversations where we can provide a platform to bring in decision makers to be able to influence and challenge each other on some of the topics that we have presented. Thank you so much for everyone who has attended. We greatly appreciate it. Be on the lookout for further webinars that we'll be sending out. Thank you so much to our panelists for taking your time to be with us. It's been greatly enriching to having you, and we really challenged ourselves in putting together this webinars that as women in engineering, we want to put out new voices, we want to hear from new people, new ideas, and it's really great, and you've really exceeded our expectation in terms of the conversation that we've had. Thank you so much for that. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you, everybody.